like, it wasn't like I just became this guy who was up a few 100% on like so many cryptos that I own, but it's like, I just slowly got more and more invested, learned more and more and more. And over those 4 years, like, again, like you said, it took a long time for it to kind of consolidate and mature and shake everybody out. And over those, that gave you plenty of time if you were invested or even wanted to learn to really get the knowledge and be in it. And it's still not too late. Like, the best time to start is today. Yep. The last thing you want to regret is not doing it today because you think Bitcoin's too high or Bitcoin's this or Bitcoin's that. And in a year or two from now, it's over 100K or it's being used to buy, anything you want or at any store you want. Like it's growing, it's maturing, and to not at least take a chance at looking at what it might do or what it could do, I think is the biggest mistake. At least be open-minded to it.
You're listening to the SteadyTrade Podcast. The SteadyTrade Podcast.
Welcome back to the SteadyTrade Podcast, everyone. I am Tim Bohen, back with, not back with, but we've got Kyle Williams here today. So just a little bit of an introduction. We are pivoting a little bit with the SteadyTrade Podcast. So we've done a lot of cool stuff through the years. I always look back on season one. We've actually pivoted several times because we're always trying to evolve and change and do what's, best or most helpful to you, the listener. I think back to season one and we actually had seasons in the beginning where we would work through an agenda and we kind of went through the basics of penny stocking and how to build a watch list, and still very, very proud of that. So if you go back, especially if you're new, go back to that season one and check that out. It's really a great way. Again, the beauty of podcasts is if you're on the treadmill, you're commuting, or hey, I always say I won't tell your boss if you're listening at work, just do it. I won't tell them. But, you can actually learn this stuff and not have to be as visual, as obviously I hope you're not driving and watching YouTube like Roland Wolf used to do, et cetera. But that's a great thing. And, we've gone through doing a lot of interviews through the years. We've done book reviews. So again, I'm really fond of the SteadyTrade Podcast, but the latest pivot, what we're going to start trying to do is people who have been asking to be kind of more, topical, more in the now. So we've got an amazing network of traders with StocksToTrade, with the SteadyTrade team. Obviously, Kyle is here today. Jack, Matt, Bryce, Tim Sykes, all the people in the community. So what we're going to do is we're going to start kind of, and this is an experiment. So as always, please give us a comment. Let us know if you like this. But we're kind of like pick a topic, a topic du jour. Today we're talking crypto, as well as Kyle's trading, as well as Kyle's been doing some charity work, et cetera. So we're kind of pivoting on these topics of the day with the opinions of the trader of the day. So again, we've got Kyle here. Most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with him. You can check him out, Trader Kyle C on Twitter, I believe. Hopefully, if not, they'll link it below if I spoke that wrong. And most of you might notice Steven's not here, oddly enough. Just real quick before we get started, I know I like to pick on Steven about many things, but no BS. He's actually on an ayahuasca trip right now. Of all the things Steven needs in his life, I don't know, good or bad. I've heard a lot of good about ayahuasca, but with Steven's personality, I don't know. I hope it all ends out. He's in the mountains of Mexico somewhere. I hope he makes it back. Maybe I'll need you as a new host, Kyle. I don't know. Right. It kind of dates me, but I'm a big fan of like Apocalypse Now. I could kind of see Steven being like Colonel Kurtz and just like never coming out of the jungle again. Would not surprise me. But that being said, welcome, Kyle. How's it going, man?
Thank you. Good. It's good to be back. I think the last time I was on was with Jack and Andrew, which I think had to be at least a year and a half ago. Maybe a year ago, but it's been a while. But it feels like it was only 2 months ago. So it's good to be back. It's cool to have me on again.
So, it's a bummer. Like, the last time, I guess it's just the new normal of Zoom. Last time I saw you in person was 2 years ago, I think, at the conference. But I guess it is what it is. And so that being said, what's one of the big points of the update is, what have you been, how's your trading been going? What's been working for you? A lot of people on the podcast, they want to learn setups. They want to know what to look for. So kind of what is and what isn't working for you right now, and what are you focusing on, I guess?
So recently, the last September and August, I've talked about this in my YouTube recap videos. but it reminds me of 2019, where like this market, had a huge hot market in January and February, probably the hottest we've ever seen. And then we kind of needed a cool off. So it made sense that this September and August weren't slow as 2019, but they certainly were like a cool down, right? I saw a lot of traders losing, a lot of traders were red, a lot of traders were taking off. And so for me, being primarily OTC, that didn't really work too well. There were a lot of OTC traders I saw were red. A lot of breakouts weren't working. A lot of first green days weren't working. Certainly a lot of dip buys weren't working. And so most of my profits in August and September were from listed stocks. Okay. I mean, CEI being one of the huge runners that's kind of made my last month or so, or at least a good portion of it. And I think that will bring momentum as we head into winter. But listed stocks for me have been much more dominant in terms of not necessarily on the long side, but me being a short bias trader have been useful for me to stay profitable.
Now, something that a lot of people may or may not be familiar with, but, I always talk of, and I think everyone does, but, OTCs come and go, and I mean, that is just the nature of it. I think, obviously we appeal to the newer trader. That's why they're listening to the podcast. So I think a lot of people freak out because they think it's over. I mean, I think going back, I've been in this game 15 years. And I remember 15 years ago, OTCs are over. It's done, So to those people that have done very well back in the summer and the spring, talk to that a little bit and maybe calm them down or explain, a little bit of the seasonality, I guess.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I resonate with that so much because I was there in 2019. I remember thinking, penning dip buys were like my primary long setup. I loved them. That's what got me profitable. And 2019, I think for like a 3 or 4 month stretch, they didn't even show up. Like forget about the setup not working. They weren't even there. And so I had the same thought of like, will I need to adapt? Like, how will I need to adapt? Will I ever see a penning dip buy again? And come 2020 and early 2021, I crossed $1 million in profits with a panic dip buy. So like seasonality, like to pull it full circle, like seasonality happens, certain setups will come and go, but just right. You've been doing it for 15 years. I've been doing it for 5, I hope to keep doing it. I hope to love to say I've been doing it for 15. I've seen it. The seasons come and go. The best thing you could do is hang tight, protect yourself, manage your risk and just stay in the game until your setups come back. Of course, you can do a little adapting. It doesn't never hurts to try to learn and adapt to new setups that are in that other season that you may not be good at. But don't freak out that like your good setup won't come back. There's good odds it actually will. You just got to stick around and stay in the game.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, like even like this week, I think, so I'm sure we'll talk about CEI. I go back to how quickly things change. I go back to last week and even up to that. My focus is listed stocks, just low float NASDAQ stocks, crazy stuff all over the place. Can't even watch everything. Then the bubble bursts on CEI and, all of a sudden it's like, this week for me has been like paint dry. And I'm like, we got Grom's a decent, low float NASDAQ, but last few days, it's just like, man, there is, and you're like yesterday, I spent 6 hours waiting for BTBT, that stupid crypto related stock that I hate, but it's like, it was the only thing there. I mean, again, for me, speaking of you being more, you're way more OTC, I'm more listed NASDAQ, so for me, like, I'm like, oh God, I'm like BTBT is the best thing I got. And then that thing just sits there at 12 for literally 6 hours at 12. I was in the chat and I'm like, just die. At that point, I was like, would this stupid thing just die? Because I want to like walk away, and it just sat there sideways. But that's what happens when, you've got, I've called CEI, quote unquote, one of the best pump and dumps in recent memory, last year or so. That thing is epic. And then that bubble bursts. And if you're listening, today is October 7th, 2021. The run ended 2 days ago. Stock was already had 3-4 days in a row. The momentum was over. Then Kerrisdale Capital drops a hit piece and completely cut its head off at that point. So then when that happens, everybody gets scared. And, you think about some of the recent the recent movers, they're all these Twitter pumps, whether it be the BBIGs or the DATs or Wish, and, and all the BMRA and all these. So people get scared and then it dries up. But the nice thing about having experience, I'm not worried. They'll come back, especially, here goes Grom. Grom's pushing new high a day. That's the beauty of stocks. If Grom does something wild, everyone's going to forget. Everyone's going to forget CEI, and it'll all come back. So,
Yep.
So talk a little bit about CEI. Again, incredible. I look back at it had little bitty red days, but like 30 green days in a row or something ridiculous. So talk about CEI. How'd you trade it? And ultimately, what can the listener look for the next CEI or something?
So I guess prospectively on the spectrum of how good or bad you can do it, I have to say I did pretty well considering I was green on it every day.
Nice.
For how I guess maybe I think the standards I have for myself, I would say a lot of missed opportunity on my part, only because I've been in this game long enough to know what setups of mine are like my favorite, what are my A++ setups. From a short perspective, when the time is right, not too early, but when the time is right, CEI is up there, like the top of the top. And I knew that. And so because I kind of knew that, it almost hurt me a bit where I tried to push size, I tried to accept bigger risks, and I did okay with that. But it was almost a routine for like 3 or 4 days in a row where in the morning I'd go really big size, I'd take a loss, and the next day, and then later in the day, it would show up an opportunity, and I'd pretty much make that loss back and then up a few hundred or a few thousand. So like my risk reward, yes, I was green, but risk reward wise, it was like 1 to 1 or 1.3 to 1. Like I was just getting over the loss after in the afternoon, where it's like, if I just had taken a more conservative size, if I just kind of wasn't so aggressive in the beginning, because I was so aggressive in the morning, I wasn't as aggressive in the afternoon. So even the smaller aggressive size in the afternoon still brought me back green. I just reflected of like, if I just was more patient with it, a little more, not so like want to just knock it out of the park right away. Could have been much more greener, much more in control. And like I said, I was green every day, but even on the huge dump day, I was in shock. I covered in like the 280s.
All right.
And was like, and I saw that bounce and I was like, maybe I should re-short. Maybe not, I don't really know. And then the hit piece comes and just destruction. I was like, I couldn't believe it, but that's how some of these go. And that's totally what CEI did.
Yeah. And it's like that's the bummer, I'm going to butcher the saying, but it's like when stuff like that happens, and again, I'll butcher this, I apologize, but it's like when something like that happens, you never have enough size, I think of like, the classic, like everyone thinks of like the Tim Grittani fan. And that's probably where the quote comes from. It's probably like when Tim Grittani was talking about the Fannie Mae meltdown and CEI was a lot like that. It's like, that's the only bummer about, trying. Then when it happens, listen, if you had 1 billion shares short, it wouldn't be enough because you could, that's the beauty of when those things happen. But
right.
It's kind of funny, my favorite, and I wanted to bring this up on the quote on the podcast. We'll probably try and link it, but I'll probably pronounce it wrong, but Mauxian, Maoxian on Twitter. He's been around forever. I followed that guy for like 15 years. And, there's been this debate on CEI, and, I won't get into the whole Twitter pumper thing, but, it was the biggest Twitter pump I've seen, specifically on Twitter, maybe ever, because we kind of, obviously we've evolved. It used to be, I'm old enough to remember the fax machine pumping dubs. Okay, that's how old I am. Hard copy mailers. I remember those days. But, now it's Twitter. And the tweet by Mauxian was, Tim Grittani was basically calling the collapse on CEI a couple days in advance. And he says, he's like, who are you going to believe? The guy who's made 15 million shorting junk stocks or the guy with the neck tattoos? And I'm like, man, that's a pretty good quote right there. And then the next day it completely gets destroyed. So
right. That's funny.
So, back to that, like, with CEI, in your opinion, how do you, do you think this will bring an end to the Twitter pump or is this the new normal? And, and again, how do you spot the next one, in your opinion?
Yeah. I thought about this in a way of that, because it was such a good Twitter pump, I thought to myself, like, this has been so successful, the next Twitter pump will be massive, right? But with such a harsh ending, as we just talked about, like, I mean, CEI was down 60%, with such a harsh ending. All the people who I think could have, should have, or would have made money if it had such a, not so much of a harsh of a downtrend, usually I feel like the waves continue when everyone who's making money just throws new money in.
Which these guys had a good run,
right.
As much as I don't like what they do, and as much as I would never, they had a good run, man. Yeah. Until this, it's, you look at their track record, it's like they were, and that's the way it goes. It works until it doesn't, as we like to say. But
yeah, so I always think of like the money kind of compounds itself between people, and so I thought to myself, like, after such a harsh pull like this, I don't know if it'll compound right this time. I'm sure, I don't think a Twitter pump or a supernova or the hype will ever end. Like, there'll be a new sector comes around, but it might take a time to cool down. They might need new people to refresh the market, new traders to join certain rooms and certain Twitter accounts and followings, and how the market regurgitates and consolidates through people, not just stocks, before the next kind of hot thing comes around.
Yeah. And I always try and be Mr. Positivity, but one of the biggest, and it's a good thing for us. Listen, I traded it on the front side, you traded on the back side. We know, I remember, again, a month ago, I'm like, listen, this is the worst stock in the world, but we know what is happening here. There is opportunity to day trade this thing on the long side. Don't hold overnight. Okay. If it reverses, don't stay in it, but and it proceeds to go from 30 cents to, 480 or whatever. But, it's a double-edged sword. I just think with social media, it's created just this between, the thoughts, the unrealistic expectations and stuff. There's just, I just don't think this is going away anytime soon until there's like some sort of like federal crackdown. And until the Fed, until the, to do a billions reference, until the guys in the windbreakers show up, it's just going to keep going on and on and on. And people, hope springs eternal. And I just, and that's the great thing. And hopefully what we can accomplish with this podcast is, letting you recognize that, don't overstay in CEI. And that was one of the points I touched on earlier, and I want to make again. Listen, you can blame the hit piece again, if you got bagged. Okay. But the big thing I want to point out, and I'm sure Kyle will say this, it was red 3 days before that. Every 3 days in a row is red every day. Okay.
Right.
So you got to recognize, and if you got stuck, okay, if you're new, that's cool. Hey, we were all new. Kyle was new. I was new. Okay. But that might be your number one takeaway is understand and hopefully learn from this podcast to recognize what's happening here. And when you got 2-3 days of red, that's two signs: either dump your long or start looking to get short because the end's coming. So,
right.
So, little bit, before, I want to finish up on the crypto stuff. That was our agenda item. But, talk a little bit about the charity stuff you've been doing. I think you've been inspired by our friend Tim Sykes. And, so what have you been doing there? And update us a little bit and maybe, drop some links or et cetera. So.
Yeah, totally. So I totally have been inspired by Tim in a way that I realized making money is great in trading, and I want to make more of it. There's no doubt about it. But it came to a point to me where it was like, well, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
Right. And I think you hear people say all the time, like, money doesn't make you happy. And I agree with that. But I think it can add to your life if you know how to use it and do something with it. It's a tool. And if you don't use that tool, it's like, what are you doing all this for? And so I kind of, through this year, as I really kind of hit my stride, I decided to make a few donations. So the first donation was to my best friend who runs a nonprofit for single family homes.
Love it.
Called singlehope.org or singlehope.com. For his birthday, donated $5,000. Super awesome moment. Like, it was one of the biggest donations he's had. He can now start giving to way more families because it's just him running it essentially. So that was really, really cool. Second one was for my mom's birthday. She's an animal lover, loves animals, loves just if she knew how to take care of every animal in the world, she would do it. And so
sounds like my wife. We've
yeah.
got, she takes care. We've got 6 cats that she feeds.
Yeah, sounds like my grandma. My grandma had a lot of cats too. But yeah, so I said, pick an animal sanctuary, pick any charity really you want. And I had a feeling it was going to be animals. And it was Libby Lou's Safe Haven. They take care of some donkeys, but mainly cows who are either deserted or can't be taken care of anymore. We went there and we donated $10,000 for them, which covers I think a third or even more of their yearly costs to take care of those animals. So that was really cool. And then recently, it wasn't really a charity, but my grandparents, who I haven't seen in a couple years, but they haven't come out and seen me in Southern California here in almost 8 years.
Okay.
We went to Florida where they were at, and picked them up in a private jet and then flew them back. So no charity work there, but just my grandfather couldn't have been happier. He's like, nothing will top this gift. And it was really an emotional and cool moment for my family and I. So
and I mean, again, we've, like I said, we because of COVID and everything, we don't have much time to bump into each other. But I think we know each other a little bit, and to me, family's number one, and man, that's awesome, and it's especially 8 years, man, and
wow,
and it goes back to something that I talk about a lot on the podcast and webinars. It's again, like you mentioned, I mean, money's cool and everything, but it's what's the point if you can't do something awesome like that, or you can't, the smile your mom gets when you do that charity, or you help out a buddy, and that's what I love is you're helping out a buddy, helping out a friend, and helping out him help his goal, so it's
totally.
like a win-win, and and that with me trading, I've said that a million times. I mean, it's cool and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's just red and green numbers on a screen. And that's one of the reasons I've got side businesses and I've got all these hobbies and stuff, because, it's if you miss something, actually making something happen. And that is the drawback of trading is, at the end of the day, you're not really creating anything, especially day trading. I mean, it's you're not helping the company, and you're not helping anybody else. You're basically just helping yourself, hopefully, or helping your broker too. Hey, brokers love it. But but that's the cool thing is that, and I really respect that, man. That again, helping friends and family, because that's what it's all about, man. And I know it sounds corny, but it really is. It's it's and once you get older, like me, when you're when you got one foot in the grave and one on a banana peel, you really appreciate that stuff, so.
Yep.
So let's talk crypto.
Let's do it.
Is Bitcoin going to 1 million today?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I'm not that bullish, but I personally think it's undervalued where we're at. We've had this recent spike because
I love it, man. It's always so refreshing to talk to a short bias trader who doesn't hate everything.
Yeah.
Because you go on Twitter and something, every short bias trader is like, crypto's a scam, NFTs are a scam, the S&P 500 is a scam. It's would you lighten up? Okay.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between short and shitty penny stocks and hating the entire world. Okay.
Yeah.
You can be positive about a few things.
Yeah.
Proceed.
There's a few big traders that I follow that aren't even trading penny stocks, and they're they're super bearish crypto. And I just I get it, but I don't know, if you can just research enough. I haven't met anyone who's really come in with an open mind and is given the research and is given what Bitcoin means and what Bitcoin is, and has been I don't think it works out. Anyone who I think has really been in it is there's absolutely an opportunity here. And I think recently the Fed the Fed and the SEC said we have no intentions of banning Bitcoin. And for me, being kind of doing a lot of research, I already thought the genie was out of the bottle. I didn't think that was really an issue. But for the general public and for everyone else, they're oh crap, this is real. Bitcoin's not going anywhere. So, I mean, we just had this huge surge from 40K to 55. Hopefully we consolidate around here. But, if anyone who knows technical analysis or looks at a chart without even knowing the fundamentals, I mean, kind of seeing Bitcoin's chart from April, May to dipping, then holding, then now higher highs, and now we're back making our higher lows and now higher highs. It's like we look really good for more upside, just from a technical standpoint. But there's hundreds of other fundamental reasons why Bitcoin is in a good position to go higher and do well.
So, again, we're always trying to, the goal of the podcast is to help people out there. So, obviously we don't give financial advice, but what is like, okay, so I'm listening to the podcast. I'm a believer. I listened to Tim scream like an idiot a minute ago. How would you recommend someone get quote unquote exposed to crypto? Maybe this is the first time they actually kind of believed in it. What's an approach? How do I get started, et cetera?
So the best way I could say is just how I got started. Back in the 2017 run when Bitcoin went to 20,000, that grabbed my attention. I was like, what on earth is going on? What is this whole new asset class? And I came across a research kind of service called Palm Beach Confidential, run by Tika Tiwari. I'm still part of that service today. He's really laid the foundation for how I understand the markets, how things works. And I kind of took that information, went upon myself and started researching more. And then recently me and Matt Monaco came out with, he had the 30-day boot camp with Tim Sykes, and that went super well. We decided to kind of recreate that in a bit way with crypto. And we have a 14-day boot camp that came out, I believe, 4 or 5 months ago. So if that's the Palm Beach research group that I'm part of, or Palm Beach Confidential, it's called, is a little more expensive, but you get a massive in-depth information. If you want something lighter, something a little more cheaper, something that will still give you the basics and understanding the market at a ground floor, I think the boot camp that me and Matt did is a really great beginner intro information. And if you don't want to do either, you can just start Googling your life away. I've just certainly done that. There's a lot of information out there, a lot of good websites, Coin Market Cap. I mean, you can really Google any crypto and type in white paper. And if they have a white paper, you can just start reading what the crypto does, what its use case is, why was it created. I mean, it's all on there. You just got to go dig for it.
Yeah. And, and like something that I've even talked about on a lot of the webinars and stuff I've done. I mean, listen, even if you're lazy, I mean, if you're the laziest person, I've said this going back to last fall when the big breakout came. I'm like, listen, you need to be exposed to Bitcoin particularly. And I think that, figure out your budget. Okay, listen, we've got listeners all across the spectrum, age, incomes, savings, et cetera. Figure out what a manageable information or manageable position size is, and think of it like, I think of it like an index fund when I was 19 years old. And, listen, I don't care if it's $50 a month. Okay, start getting exposed, because that does two things. Number one, it gets you more engaged. Okay, I mean, there is something to be said. I'm a big fan of Nassim Taleb. Everybody talks about Black Swan. I actually think Skin in the Game was his better book. But the more you get a little bit of skin in the game, you get involved in that market, it gets you engaged, it gets you studying more. And again, I mean, I just think, I joked about the Bitcoin to $1 million. I mean, not today, the joke, but I just think it's just, I mean, the cat's out of the bag. This isn't going back. And there's going to be ups and downs through the way. But if you're adding $50, you're adding dips, et cetera, you get exposed, you get engaged, you get some skin in the game. And it's the best way to learn anything. I mean, I don't care what you're trying to do. I mean, if you want to learn, I mean, as corny as it is, if you want to open a restaurant someday, go to work at a restaurant. Okay. Start doing dishes, get in the market and get exposed. And I haven't checked out Kyle or Matt's boot camp yet. I had too much going on, but I've heard great things. That's why I wanted to bring it up. And I just think, you look back, going back to last fall, broke 20,000. And it was like, I got a video back then. I'm like, 2021 is it. I think in 2017, things got too heated. It got ahead of itself. I've told this story. I remember the day Bitcoin topped, I was in New York City for a conference. And I mean, the Uber to the airport talking Bitcoin. I'm at the I get to the airport in Grand Rapids, Michigan, little airport, people talking Bitcoin. I'm on the plane. Everybody's talking Bitcoin. I get off the plane. People are talking about, Ether and Tether. And I'm like, and on the Uber to the whole, I'm like, something's going on. And that was literally the day Bitcoin topped. Okay. So I think we got a little heated back then, took a few years to shake out, but now I think the cat's out of the bag and you're just going to be a steady uptrend from here. Obviously shakeouts along the way, but I'm so bullish.
Right. I was similar to what you said, like just getting engaged. I couldn't agree with more because I was the same way. I mean, back in 2017, I bought Bitcoin with a couple $100, like right before we went to 20K. I mean, we were at we went from 4K to 6K. I bought it at 5K. And then, I mean, within 2 months, we were at 20. And of course I only had a few $100 and back then I didn't even know what a parabolic was, right? I was like, oh, 20K, awesome. Luckily 6K was a fairly decent entry. But I never sold and I just kept holding on to it because I knew I wanted to be long-term regardless. It wasn't really a trade. And I just started like learning and I started because I was kind of invested. Like now I'm like, I want to know what this means. And again, like you said, it's funny you said like being a dishwasher. I wasn't a dishwasher, but I worked for a restaurant. I was a server and I literally took my tip money and just every 2 weeks, every month, like just put more and more into crypto, more and more into Bitcoin. More,
that's funny. I did not know that story. That was like that's proof. Maybe Kyle and I need to do ayahuasca and tap into the global consciousness because I swear to God, I did not know that story. But I still made a dishwasher analogy.
But it's just something I would do. And so like, it wasn't like I just became this guy who was up a few 100% on like so many cryptos that I own, but it's like, I just slowly got more and more invested, learned more and more and more. And over those 4 years, like, again, like you said, it took a long time for it to kind of consolidate and mature and shake everybody out. And over those, that gave you plenty of time if you were invested or even wanted to learn to really get the knowledge and be in it. And it's still not too late. Like, the best time to start is today.
Yep.
The last thing you want to regret is not doing it today because you think Bitcoin's too high or Bitcoin's this or Bitcoin's that. And in a year or two from now, it's over 100K or it's being used to buy, anything you want or at any store you want. Like it's growing, it's maturing, and to not at least take a chance at looking at what it might do or what it could do, I think is the biggest mistake. At least be open-minded to it,
Now, last question. Again, I am, Kyle and I are on different ends of the spectrum. I'm at least 8 times older than him. I'm pushing 75 at this point. But so I'm very risk averse. So, again, it's just different stages of life. So what I tell people, and this is probably too cautious. I tell people, Bitcoin, Ethereum, that's kind of it. Now I know, especially people with smaller accounts, people with a couple $100, couple $100,000, they want to look at the altcoins, the shit coins, et cetera. What's your opinion? Again, you're younger, you got a different risk profile, when it comes to some of these shit coins,
So, right. So there are coins that are altcoins, which are, alternative coins that are not Bitcoin, that are not Ethereum. They do maybe more smaller services, or they're trying to solve a problem that's maybe smaller than the big boys of Ethereum and Bitcoin. There are some ones that are legit, like there are some ones that truly do provide a service or trying to solve a problem. But there's also thousands of cryptos, and to say all 1,000 of them will succeed, I can't be on board with that. Maybe it'll turn into like maybe a smaller stock market where there's just always going to be shittier coins that are trying to make it. I can see that, but the reality is a lot of these coins just really don't add any value, or they try to add value, but there's going to be competitors that just outwin them. So I think if you're trading them, by all means, you can trade them. There's going to be a lot of volatility, a lot of opportunity there. But how it usually goes with even small cap stock. I mean, CEI is a perfect example. Too many people become believers, right? And so I would just really make sure you know what you're looking into, and really be objective about it. Like, what problem does this coin solve, right? What does it do that no other coin does? And even if you don't know, even if you're not certain, just from a risk management standpoint, how much of my net worth, how much of my trading account, how much am I willing to lose on this coin? And if it's over that, if you're emotionally too invested, like, you need to make some changes. That's the best way I can think about protecting yourself, and just staying alive in trading and investing. So,
well, thank you, Kyle. So all the listeners out there, it is a little rushed. I wanted to get all our agenda items. I do have a good excuse. I'm giving blood. My daughter is doing she's the student council president, and she organized a blood drive at school, and I got to be there in 45 minutes. But I think we hit all the topics, went a little fast, but thank you, Kyle. Again, it's awesome to catch up again. I haven't like person to person again, 2 years ago, I think at the conference was the last time I saw you, in person and
around this time.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll definitely have Kyle back. Thanks, Kyle. And everyone out there. And I know I say this pretty much every episode, but we're going to go with this new agenda for quite some time. Again, we got Bryce was last week. We got Jack coming up. We got Matt. We're going to work through the whole stable of all. And what we want to get to is, I know I'm Tim is known for going off on rants and tangents and monologues for 20 minutes. What we're trying to do is bring you a lot more opinions and ideas from a lot of these traders that are crushing it out there. So definitely drop us that comment. Head over to SteadyTrade.com. We'll link over to those charities that that Kyle mentioned, as well as to his social media, so you can follow along. And have a good day, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
And,
Thanks for having me on.
We'll talk to you soon, man. So
awesome. See you.
I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Thanks so much for watching and being part of the Stocks to Trade community. We wouldn't be here without you guys. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Our goal is to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, but we can't do it without you guys. So if you like what we're doing here and you want to hear more, please, please, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next video.